Good afternoon, everyone. I know it's been a long day, but we are getting near the end of it. I've got about 14 slides to get through in 20 minutes. When I first was asked to do this, they said you've got 10 minutes. Yesterday, I found I had 15 minutes. Today, getting here, I have 20 minutes. And as you'll learn, I could talk about data protection forever. It's one of my favourite acts. Right? Hardly a day goes past without me thinking about data protection. 365 days a year. I can see you're all thinking, wow. But we're going to do 5 courses today. Our company does many courses, maybe 105, maybe 205, but I'm just going to talk about 5 of the big ones to give you some idea of what the big qualifications are looking at in this sector. It's going to be data protection, freedom of information, rather than RM, but that's what I've been asked to do. This tells you about me. It tells you I've done data protection forever. I have actually done it for nearly 25 years. And on the way, I was asked to be an examiner for the British Computer Society courses in data protection and freedom of information. This was quite a nice perk because I got quarterly trips to London, with expenses paid and a lunch thrown in, and I was on the panel that developed and worked through these courses. It was quite an experience. I'm no longer on the panel because our company runs the courses, so they couldn't have me setting them and then delivering the courses. It wouldn't quite work. And in the course of my life, I've been asked to speak at national and international conferences, so data protection has been really good to me. I've had to go to Rome, Barcelona, and the Greek island of Syros for a week just to deliver a half-hour talk on data protection. It's tough, but I did it. But now I'm just a director of the company. I don't speak for them much. I do conferences, this and that. It gets me out of the retirement schedule that I'm in. And the following things tell you how I am a well-rounded individual and I do lots of things. The most exciting part of my life at the moment is grandfather. I'm only a 3-month-old, my grandson is only a 3-month-old data subject, but he's one of the best things that's happened to me in the last 65 years. So let's look at the first course, the hors d'oeuvre. I also get to speak French badly, by the way. The hors d'oeuvre. Nearly 20 years ago, the British Computer Society, which already did many courses in IT, thought they'd developed something in the area of data protection, because data protection is, of course, a subset of IT. They weren't quite right there, but that's what they thought. So they pulled together some people from various organizations, and I was lucky enough to go to the initial meetings and then become an examiner for this course. It was called ISEB to start with, Information Systems Examining Board. They rebranded it over the years, but that's how it started. And a lot of people still say the ISEB certificate. Have you got the ISEB? And this is what they came up with. It's going to be a 40 taught hours course. You will see your tutor for 40 hours. That means at least 5 days. Some companies do 6, some do 7. One of the biggest names does 8. And the more courses or the more days you do, obviously the cost goes up. You can get this course for under 2,000, probably down as low as 1,500, but you can also get it for nearly 3,000. So it's quite a big course. 40 hours, at least 5 days, round about £2,000. Our company does it on a weekday over 5 or 6 weeks. So it's not all at once in 1 week. That is masochism. Right? It's 1 day a week over a period of 5 or 6. And at the end of it, there's a 3-hour exam, which I'll talk about in a little while, because there's quite a lot to say there. Our company started doing them about 5 years ago, 6 years ago, and we've put through 425 delegates on the data protection course, which is quite a good number. The pass rate is round about 80, 82%. It depends on the exam. And in that time, we've had 2 distinctions. To get a distinction, you have to reach 80%. Now that tells you it's quite tough. Right? The pass mark is 50%. Most people manage it. But despite that, it's the exam that kills people. And I'll talk about that in a little while. But it has become the gold standard in data protection qualifications. If you've got this, your employability is sky high. It's a really good thing to have because it's hard to get. It's rigorous. And BCS realized after a while that another exam could be produced. And for the entree, we have the Freedom of Information Certificate. It came in at least 10 years after data protection, but they made it virtually the same exam except for the subject matter. Our company's only been doing this for a while, maybe 4 or 5 years, and we've done 308 delegates, but 5 have managed to get a distinction, so it's a little easier than data protection. The pass mark, is round about 90%. Right? So there's 2 really big, expensive, long courses, but they are the gold standard. They're worth having. I don't know if anyone here has one, do you? Oh, maybe that's because you're records managers, not data protection FOI people. But that's it. When people start it, I don't think they realise how much work there is, because it says 40 hours tuition, but you need at least another 40 hours in your own time, reading, doing the homework, going online, checking out reports, codes of practice. So it's quite a comprehensive and intensive process. But if you come out of it, you've done very well. The big problem, as I've said several times, is the exam. It's 3 hours. It's closed book, which means you take nothing in, right? Lots of law exams allow you to take a copy of the law into the exam. So they're looking for your interpretation and analysis of it. These exams, they don't allow you to take anything in at all. So it turns it into a memory test, which isn't much fun. And occasionally people fail this exam. The format is rather strange as well. There are 3 types of answers. The first type is multiple choice. Choose one of 4 options, click, move on. That's not too bad. We've seen those before. The second section, they call it section B, is questions with 5-point answers. So they ask you a simple question and they expect you to say 5 things about it in bullet point fashion. That's not too bad. Most people can get 3 or 4 or maybe 5 bullets for those. But it's the essays that they want you to do afterwards which kills everyone. Because after spending an hour on these little tiddly questions, you get to write 4 essays in the remaining 2 hours. This is where the problems come, because quite a few of the delegates are mature. They haven't written an essay for 20 or 30 years. Right? Some of them haven't used a pen for 10 years, because we're all online and keyboard monkeys now. Right? So writing an essay is hard work. Writing 4 essays is almost madness. Right? An essay has a beginning where you say what you're going to do. It has an end where you tell the examiner what you've done and wrap it all up. And it has 3 or 4 paragraphs in the middle. It usually goes to 3 or 4 pages of A4. Right? So you've got to do 4 of those in 2 hours. It's quite hard, isn't it? We are being trained in information and public sector and public service to deliver short, succinct reports to top management, just a page of A4, please, son, you know, that sort of thing. And then suddenly we've been asked to write a long-winded, complex, almost academic essay. And this is where people fall down. I know very, very expert data protection officers. I know one not far from here who's taken this exam 3 times and failed. She's a fantastic data protection person. She's running the whole team for her organisation. She's very good, but she can't remember things and she can't write essays, so she can't pass. Tough, isn't it? Shall we try one of the questions? BCS invites people to be training providers. That gives them the right to put on these courses, which leads to BCS exams, and we became an accredited training provider. There are others. I'm not going to tell you who they are, but you can find them quite easily with a web search. There were 6 doing data protection. Some of them have ceased to do it for various reasons, and I think there's about 4 or 5 doing FOI as well. You have to pay a fee to BCS to be an accredited provider. They audit you. They want to see your materials. They want to get your trainers. Every trainer has to hold the certificate they're training in. So it's quite a lot of admin, quite a lot of expense. But BCS do put you on their website and you get a lot of leads from them. So it's worth doing. Quite a few companies are having a go. But after a little while, other companies who weren't accredited said, we can do that. So lots of other companies started creating data protection certificates. Again, I know who they are, but I'm not going to tell you. You can find them quite easily on the web. And they didn't have the BCS monitoring them or charging them fees, so their overheads were less, so they could do a little bit more, they were more flexible. And lots of people go on these, and they find them good quality, and they come out with a certificate of some sort, except it doesn't have BCS on the top. But that also seemed fairly usually to have a 3-hour exam tagged on the end of it, so it was quite hard work. And also a similar price. But that's where the market was quite a while ago. Then, strangely, a divorce took place. With the Freedom of Information Certificate, BCS suddenly stopped supporting Freedom of Information Scotland. After 2 or 3 years of running it as an FOI course that covered all the acts, the 2 of them, they decided they would no longer have Freedom of Information Scotland questions in their exam. Now, I don't know why this happened. I was on the panel, and the order came down from above, we're dropping FOISA, it's only going to be FOI. And I thought they were wrong. We volunteered to write the Scottish element for them, make up another certificate, but they didn't seem to want to, so they quietly dropped FOISA. And if you do an FOI course now, it's all about the Westminster Act, which is very useful if you're in England, Wales, Northern Ireland, but not much use if you're in Scotland. So FOISA sort of subsided in Scotland. There was no certification. There may still be practitioners with a BCS FOI certificate. Anyone got one? I thought, Alison, for a minute you were saying, I've got it.
No, I was just saying, unless you work in Scotland, but you work for an organisation which is governed by Westminster legislation.
Oh. No, I won't argue. So, the divorce happened, and FOI was the certificate, FOISA disappeared. So we thought there's a gap in the market here. So after a reasonable period of time, we became a copycat, and we devised our own course for Scotland. And we called it a practitioner certificate in FOISA. There's a leaflet on your chair, there's some more spares by the orange juice. And we shortened it because the BCS courses had quite a lot of history and background in, so we cut out that and had a more practical approach. And we charged a little bit less. And instead of having a 3-hour, closed book, really hard exams, we turned it into a 2-hour assessment, no essays to write, and we gave candidates a project to do in their own time. We gave them a choice of half a dozen, and this went down remarkably well because they did the assessment, almost everyone passed it because they didn't have to do the essays, and then they could go away and do this project, and we gave them, I believe, 20 working days to do it. And at the end of that, they emailed it to us, and we marked it. We had a group of tutors who marked it. And this worked brilliantly. Because when you're in your own time, you can ask your friends, you can take a 50-50, you can go on the net, you can ask a mate in the office, and you can do a really excellent piece of work, because there are no limits. You're demonstrating your knowledge, you're not just showing you can remember facts, and it worked really well. We've had 89 in the last 3 years go through this certificate. We're running it twice a year in Scotland, nowhere else seems to want it. And we may occasionally do an in-house one. If there are enough candidates that want to do it, we'll do it in-house. But even if it's wonderful, much easier to obtain, there is still only a 98% pass rate. And people say, that's strange. Shouldn't everyone pass? Because it's so easy. But remarkably, the answer is no. People will give up. Consequently, we have to label them as not passing. But we've had 45% distinctions, which means a score of over 80%. So we're very happy with this project. Practitioners who've done the course like it, because it's concentrating on the practical things you need to do FOISA. Has anyone here got this certificate? Hooray! Did you get a distinction? Wow. It's as if I paid her to be in the audience, isn't it? But we've had on the board a few people from Scotland, notably Kevin Dunyan leads our exam panel, and he's been very nice. And we have regular reviews every year. But we're very pleased with this. It worked very well. We get quality practitioners out of it. You end up with a little expert network of the people who are on your course. And we loved it. So when the time came and we had a bit of spare time, we moved on and did one for data protection. Now this is a direct rival to the BCS course, but it follows a successful FOISA course. We cut down the days to 4 and concentrate on essential practical stuff. We put in the 2-hour assessment, which people like, and then the own time project, which people love. And I know I haven't fiddled these figures, but this one also has a 98% pass rate and a 45% distinction rate. And we've put through 131 in just 2.5 years. So it's catching on, it's doing very well. We're doing it in Scotland regularly, so you can try it if you like. And we like this system. The BCS, 20 years old nearly, is quite an old-fashioned, academic, dry, dusty style, but this is modern. This is what people have to do. And we're very pleased with this. And the last course, I call it Fromage. This is one we started with IRMS. I know someone in the audience has worked very hard on it. And we've turned it into long, but not too long. It's 4 online hours. Some are live with a tutor asking and answering questions. Some are recorded. It's got a fairly small price tag at the moment, $349. And there is a 1-hour assessment that you have to do online before you can get the certificate. I was reviewing this about 3 weeks ago. I actually sat the entire course, seeing how it worked. And then I submitted my claim for a certificate, and the office spotted my name, declined to give me one. That was strange. But we started it up summer this year, and we're approaching 50 people who've had a go at this, and so far it's a 100% pass rate. And this is a foundation, so it gives you the basics. It's a medium-sized course rather than a long certificate. But it's quite a nice one. We're quite pleased with it. As we get people through it, we find odd glitches that we need to fix because the first tranches are still going through. But we're very pleased, and the people who do it seem to like it. The online assessments, there's one after each module, DP, FOI, RM, security. There are 20 multiple choice questions in each of those, so there's 80 to answer. So although we say 4 online hours, it's probably going to take a little bit more in total. But that's where we are. Right? 5 courses. Yes, young man?
I feel compelled to say at this point, IRMS members get a 10% discount.
Of course.
Thank you.
I was going to mention that later, but I'll just scrub that out of my copy. Anyway. But we're very pleased with this. It's going well, and we expect it to go well in the future. And it gives you a basic grounding in the core aspects of information governance, which is a phrase that might use quite a bit. So there's 5 courses for you. Unfortunately, the world isn't always the way you think it is, because constant change is here to stay. You've heard of Brexit, I presume. Right? We think it's on the way, but as I said, constant change is here to stay. It may not happen. Nobody really has any idea, particularly politicians in Westminster. Right? But GDPR is also on the way. In fact, we're fairly certain that is going to happen because we have a date for it, which is May 2018. And whether or not we're in or out, finally, of the European Union, GDPR will arrive. But then, as I said seconds ago, constant change is here to stay. But we're expecting 5 minutes to go, or 5 points for an answer. Got it. We're expecting GDPR to come in roughly 18 months from now. And one of the things in it says organisations, certain organisations, should have a data protection officer. And that person, initially they said, must be qualified. Recently they've downgraded it to say, must have sufficient expert knowledge to carry out the function for their organisation. So that's one of the reasons people look for qualifications in this. But that looks like it's going to make it. But remember, constant change is here to stay. And things, particularly elections and referendums, haven't been going the way we expected them recently. Right? Labour were expected to wipe the floor with the Conservatives and nearly get a majority, but they didn't, did they? And then the Brexit referendum, well, I thought we were going to stay in, but we didn't, did we? When I say we, I mean most of us. And you never know which way other elections or referenda will go. President Trump, what a horrible thought, eh? But you never know. I talked to a bookmaker friend. I said, what are the odds on having a President Trump and a Prime Minister Corbyn in 2 years? He said, well, Trump's 11-2, Corbyn, I reckon, is 30-1. We're looking at 300-1. Not that long shot, is it? It's possible. It could happen the way things are going. And apparently, a small district in Belgium can obstruct a massive trade deal with 27 nations and Canada by just voting no. Although I heard on the radio this morning they're trying to overrule it. But the world is different. Things don't happen as we used to think they would happen. So constant change is here to stay. Although I'm telling you lots of wonderful things, lots of things may change. I'm going to slow down and stop, which is quite a good idea. We do all these things. You can find us quite easily. Before I stepped up, a man said, Act Now, isn't that the company that gives away stuff? And yes, we are, at big conferences. Right? Today I haven't bought any mugs, but Glasgow, very soon, I think, will bring the mugs and the pens and the Indian sweets, which seem to go down so well. Thank you very much for listening. I hope I've given you some idea what qualifications are there, whether you want to try one. They're hard work, but they are worth it. They will stand you in good stead. So if you want to get in touch with us, there you go. We're quite easy to get to. Okay, Claire?
Yes, thank you very much.
Thank you.